Hello, this is my third presentation to our group about energy and climate science. It is a report on developments during the second quarter of 2026. Unfortunately for the world, the Iran war has caused the largest disruption of energy supplies ever. So large, in fact, that I've had to concentrate only on energy in this report. My report on second quarter climate science will come in a future meeting. Let's begin today by looking at where we began the second quarter. Here's where we left off at the end of our report on the first quarter. On February 28th, 2026, kaboom! 4 months later, on June 19th, 2026, a letter of understanding was signed between Iran and the United States calling for a 60-day ceasefire and opening of the straits. Many analysts said the United States gave away the store. They agreed to give around $300 billion in reparations, release their frozen assets, in the U.S. blockade of the Hormuz, allow resumption of oil shipments by Iran. In return, the United States got the Straits of Hormuz opened and nuclear development was paused by Iran. Less than a month later, after the signing of the Memorandum of Understanding, Iran fired on two tankers in the Straits, and on July 8th, they were closed again. The bombing and the war restarted. The Straits of Hormuz are very important to world energy supplies. This graphic shows the share of crude oil exports via the Strait of Hormuz by country of origin and destination, almost 15 barrels of crude oil per day before this war started. But Iran supplies 11% of the oil shipping through the Straits, Iraq 22%, Kuwait 9%, and the largest by far is Saudi Arabia at 38%, UAE 15%. The destination of this crude oil shows that China is by far the largest recipient, 33% of the total, India 13% of the total shipments, South Korea 12%, other Asian countries 14%, Japan 11%. Europe gets only 5% of the crude going through the Straits before the war. So you can see that the Asian countries have almost 85% of all the oil flowing through there. So the impacts on these countries is proportional to the amount of oil that they have been receiving before the war. Here begins the use of AI, both ChatGPT and Claude, free versions both. For the next two slides, Chat was asked what the closure of the Strait of Hormuz means for the global economy. Report only on energy, not military or political. It generated the text you will see next. I copied the text into Microsoft Word and used its Read Aloud feature on a second notebook PC to speak the text and record it on the PowerPoint slides. A text-to-speech feature of Microsoft Word, not an AI feature.
What the closure of the Strait of Hormuz means for the global economy. A compendium of articles gathered by ChatGPT. Why the strait matters so much. Roughly 27% of the world's maritime trade in crude oil and petroleum products moves through the strait. Cessation would remove close to 20% of global oil supply, about 80% of which ships to Asia. Rerouting that volume by pipeline bypasses, through Saudi Arabia and the UAE, could cover only a fraction of it. Oil and gas prices spiked directly. During the first closure this year, would McKinsey modeled scenarios where prices could reach $200 per barrel in a worst case, with more than 11 million barrels/day of Gulf supply curtailed. Growth takes a direct hit. Dallas Fed Research estimated the closure could raise Texas crude to roughly $98 per barrel and cut annualized global real GDP growth by about 2.9 percentage points. Asia and oil import-dependent economies are hit hardest. Countries like India face a surge in their import bill, worsening inflation and fiscal strain. It's not just oil. Natural gas is squeezed too. Qatar's LNG exports, a major supply for Asia and Europe, route through the same choke point, so gas prices and industrial energy costs get pulled up alongside oil. Duration is what determines the damage. The U.S. Energy Administration, after the June Letter of Understanding ceasefire, cut its Q3 Brent forecast from $95 per barrel to $79. That optimistic trajectory no longer realistic given the July 11, 21 re-escalation. The economic cost scales heavily with how long this second closure lasts. This author's note, Iran's reaction, July 21st, to the ongoing Strait of Hormuz battles was to unleash their proxy, the Houthis of Yemen, who closed the Bab al-Mandeb Red Sea and a shipping choke point. This closing isn't as crucial as the Hormuz 20% of daily supply, but Bab al-Mandeb carries another 6% of world supply.
The following table was created by GPP by asking, create a table showing major world economies' dependence on coal, natural gas, and crude oil imports. Show Europe, India, China, and USA. I added the table name and closing paragraph. Many of the world's largest economies are highly dependent on imported fossil fuel. This table shows import dependence by fossil fuel type before the 2026 Iran war. Europe, for example, relied on imports for 55% of the natural gas it uses. Europe depended upon imports for 75% of its crude oil use. India had to import 20% of its coal needs, where it imported 50% of its natural gas use and 86% of its crude oil. China imports about 11% of its coal, 37% of its natural gas, and 73% of its crude oil use. The United States, on the other hand, is a net exporter of all three of these categories. It is the least dependent of these major economies on importation. Now let's look at how three major economies say they respond to the Hormuz crisis, and now the Bab el-Mandeb closure of the Red Sea shipping. If the following reports sound like they were prepared by the respective State Departments or Chambers of Commerce, blame ChatGPT. The following three slides of tables and graphics were also created by GPT simply by asking, what is China's energy response to closure of the Strait of Hormuz? Report only on energy, not military or diplomatic. I also asked for tables for the EU and USA. Include text dialogue for PowerPoint presentation. Voila! Magic! I had previously spent lots of time researching the question of Hormuz response from these countries, so was confident in ChatGPT's answers. The chat text dialogue was copied into MS Word to be read aloud and recorded on the PowerPoint slides. Chat spelling and grammar were flawless by my measure. This approach is a huge time saver for creating future updates of my energy and climate science reports. I suggest you try it.
Today I will explain this infographic titled China Energy Response to Hormuz Disruptions. In this scenario, a disruption in the Strait of Hormuz has occurred, significantly affecting global oil and LNG shipments. This infographic explains how China responds to maintain a secure, affordable, and reliable energy supply. The focus is on energy management measures, not political or military actions. Let's begin with the first section. 1. Immediate response. The first priority is maintaining energy security and market stability. China continuously monitors international energy markets, shipping routes, and domestic fuel supplies. Energy companies, ports, refineries, and regulators coordinate closely to assess the situation and respond quickly. China also releases oil from its strategic petroleum reserves and utilizes natural gas storage to help offset supply disruptions. At the same time, market measures are implemented to ensure fuel remains available for essential sectors while limiting excessive price volatility. Logistics are optimized by rescheduling cargo deliveries and increasing the use of domestic pipelines, rail transport, and coastal shipping wherever possible. 2. Reducing reliance on Hormuz. The second part of the response is reducing dependence on the disrupted route. China increases oil imports from suppliers outside the Gulf region, including Russia, Central Asia, West Africa, and South America, where additional supplies are available. Pipeline imports become increasingly important because they bypass maritime choke points. Existing oil and natural gas pipelines from Russia and Central Asia continue supplying energy directly into China. Domestic oil and natural gas production is also maintained or increased where feasible to supplement imported supplies. Together, these measures reduce the impact of the Hormuz disruption. 3. Alternative energy sources. The third strategy is reducing demand for imported oil. Electric vehicles and electrified rail systems continue replacing petroleum-based transportation, lowering oil consumption. China also relies on its existing coal-fired power plants and hydropower facilities to maintain reliable electricity generation during the disruption. At the same time, renewable energy, including solar, wind, nuclear power, and battery storage, continues supplying an increasing share of electricity, further reducing dependence on imported fossil fuels. 4. Building long-term resilience. While managing the immediate disruption, China also strengthens its long-term energy resilience. Investment continues in strategic petroleum reserves, LNG receiving terminals, gas storage facilities, and pipeline infrastructure. Energy efficiency programs reduce overall demand in industry, buildings, and transportation. China also continues diversifying its portfolio of long-term energy suppliers and import routes, making the energy system more flexible and resilient. Finally, investment in renewable energy, batteries, and nuclear power continues to reduce long-term dependence on imported oil. Conclusion. In summary, China's response to the Hormuz disruption is built around 4 key actions. First, it stabilizes the market through monitoring, strategic reserves, and coordinated logistics. Second, it diversifies energy supplies by increasing imports from multiple regions and maximizing pipeline deliveries. Third, it reduces oil demand through electrification and expanded use of alternative energy sources. Finally, it strengthens long-term resilience by investing in infrastructure, improving efficiency, and expanding clean energy. Together, these measures help China maintain a secure, reliable, and affordable energy supply despite the disruption in the Strait of Hormuz.
The table, graphic, and dialogue of the European Union's response to the Hormuz closing has been removed to shorten this presentation. As seen earlier, EU historically received only 5% of the Hormuz oil. They are veterans of previous oil shocks and have learned to adapt relatively well.
Introduction. This graphic explains how the United States responds to disruptions affecting energy shipments through the Strait of Hormuz. 1. Immediate response. The first section describes the immediate actions taken to stabilize the energy market. The United States continuously monitors global energy markets, transportation networks, and critical infrastructure to understand how the disruption is affecting supply and prices. If market conditions require it, the Strategic Petroleum Reserve can be used to supplement commercial supplies and help reduce short-term supply shortages. Government agencies also work closely with energy producers, refiners, pipeline operators, and other industry partners to maintain market confidence and support reliable fuel distribution. Throughout this period, protecting consumers remains an important objective by promoting competitive markets and maintaining the flow of energy to households and businesses. 2. Leverage U.S. energy strength. The second section highlights one of America's greatest advantages, its strong domestic energy sector. The United States is one of the world's largest producers of crude oil and natural gas. High domestic production reduces dependence on any single overseas supply route. The U.S. also benefits from diversified energy supplies, including domestic production, imports from trusted trading partners, and an extensive network of pipelines, storage facilities, refineries, ports, and LNG terminals. This large and interconnected energy infrastructure provides flexibility to move energy where it is needed, even when international markets experience disruption. 3. Alternative routes and energy sources. The third section focuses on flexibility and diversification. Although disruptions in the Strait of Hormuz can affect global energy prices, the United States can rely on multiple transportation routes and a diverse mix of energy sources. Domestic oil and natural gas production remain the foundation of the energy system, while renewable energy, nuclear power, hydropower, and biofuels contribute additional diversity. A broader energy mix reduces dependence on any single fuel or transportation corridor and strengthens the overall resilience of the U.S. energy system. 4. Long-term resilience. The final section looks beyond the immediate disruption. The United States continues investing in energy innovation to improve productivity, efficiency, and reliability. Infrastructure investments strengthen pipelines, storage facilities, LNG export and import terminals, electric transmission systems, and the power grid. Energy efficiency improvements help reduce overall demand while maintaining economic growth. The United States also works with reliable international energy partners to support stable global energy markets and improve long-term supply resilience.
Claude was asked to prepare a downloadable Excel table shown on the following slide. It was given the table title, names of the column headings and rows, and units of measure. It researched the numbers, filled in the cells, and did the arithmetic to complete the table. I tweaked the table in Excel and copied it into the following slide. Claude was used instead of ChatGTP only because I had used up my daily allotment of free GTP time. Either AI is a major time saver for this kind of work, but you must verify the results. Verification was very easy this time. I drive by gas pumps every day, as you shall see. In this presentation, you've seen the scope and magnitude of the shock to global energy resulting from the bombing of Iran by Israel and USA. You've heard the hype. It's too soon for the statistical services we rely on to publish comprehensive charts and tables to help tell this energy story. The following table is my synopsis of where world energy stands at the end of the 2026 second quarter. Here is one simple ultimate test of some major countries' ability to respond to and manage the world energy impacts of kaboom. China has very large reserves of petroleum and has used a relatively small portion of them. They are also able to manage their industries and populations to reduce demand. China has shown a relatively low 6-month increase of 20%. Germany, representing the EU, has very high prices for gasoline to begin with, but have managed to limit increases to 26%. USA, in spite of being the least dependent of the major economies on crude import, nonetheless has seen a 40% rise in gas prices. Much of this, I believe, will be showing up in the profits of major U.S. oil companies in the near future. My energy has now been expended. Thank you, and I look forward to your questions.